Hey, I wanted to do a video real quick on combining TV. Um, on combining metal nanoparticle consumption with hydrogen inhalation for the function of increasing the efficacy of the hydrogen therapy. In other words, so in order for hydrogen to not just be exhaled or excreted right back out of you, it has to have a reaction inside of you, right? Because other words, easy come, easy go. Easy come, easy go. So in order to reap any benefit from it, it has to undergo a chemical reaction inside of you. That's rational. And ideally, the target is for it to react inside your cell. Um, Furthermore, ideally, it's reacting inside the mitochondria of the cell, and even more ideally inside the mitochondria of a sick cell, because that's where you would reap the most benefits from that reaction taking place. So, in order for all those if, ands, and buts to happen, you have to have a high degree of probability, or you want to tilt the scales in your favor. So, what needs to be present for that reaction to take place? Well, oxygen has to be present, which is a big if inside a cancer cell, or at least a reactive oxygen species, and a catalyst. So, in order to increase the probability, you would logically want to increase the presence of hydrogen, which is probably the biggest missing factor currently. But once you've increased the presence of hydrogen and increasing the probability of that reaction taking place, you would want to increase the presence, if you can do so safely, of both oxygen and catalysts. So she really hates anybody else getting attention. So, including the camera. So, basically, what I'm going to be starting is, and I've done this in the past. It's been safe. Is consuming gold nanoparticles. This isn't a testimony for this particular manufacturer of gold nanoparticles, but it's what I bought. So this is 240 parts per million. They're in the picometer range, which is small. The fluid is red. It's whatever. So basically, you take in gold in very small sizes physically, and those gold nanoparticles are absorbed into your cells. They're not cytotoxic, so they don't cause the death of the cell. They're gold and silver are both considered like transition metals. They're non-toxic basically. They're right on that like heavy metal line, where a lot of the heavier stuff than them is definitely going to be toxic, but they're, because of their quantum characteristics and their electron cloud and their electrochemical properties, they're not toxic, but they are metals, and when they are bound with salt or reacted with salt, well, gold specifically, gold salts are what a lot of the pharmaceutical companies are using for targeted drug therapies. So they can induce reactions specifically, by binding the gold particles with salt, with salts. And so basically, the idea is that the gold has a particular shape, and that shape can hold two elements close enough together that they form a bond. And in the absence of that gold, the two elements would have no real reason to stay in that close proximity long enough to form a bond. But once they do form a bond, they are a different element, basically. And in this case, that target element would be the formation of water from hydrogen and a reactive oxygen species. And that bonding element or catalyst is hopefully going to be gold. Now the downside to this is to in I don't think it's a concern with gold, but the downside with inducing these reactions by adding catalysts is basically the toxicity of the non-targeted reactions and the toxicity of the catalyst itself. So you could have other reactions taking place that you don't want besides hydrogen, and that could be a negative. And that's why the professionals are more focused on really targeted therapies. But this is, I think, going to be pretty safe. I've done this in the past, and I do think that it's just going to increase the odds of a hydrogen reaction taking place, and doing so increase the effects and reduce my tolerance to it, because I think once I use it for a period of time, all the metals that are in my body naturally have already kind of induced all the reactions that they will, and that's not necessarily all the benefits that I could be getting. And then you got to think of it like the flip side too. Like, these catalysts aren't just going to be necessarily chemically reactive, they're going to be radiologically reactive too. So, in the world of 5G, this is another potential downside. You put a bunch of catalysts in your body in the attempts of inducing stress reducing reactions through hydration by essentially a fuel cell reaction, and you end up accidentally inducing stress by having all these reactive catalysts in your body that are acting as antennas to frequencies in the air. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a catalyst in a chemical reaction. It's potentially antenna in a radiological reaction. So, but it's a risk I'm going to kind of play around with to see if I have. It would be slow to feel, and probably not noticeable through just me observing it. But in theory, I think it's worth kind of experimenting with, and I'm going to is just taking in a few sips of gold nanoparticles a day and combining that with the hydrogen therapy that I'm already doing and seeing if it improves it at all.